All right, so everyone, welcome to the Board of Education meeting this evening. Prior to this meeting, the board conducted a work session to continue our work on the development of our strategic plan, which we're calling Vision 2020, which is going to guide the work of the district for the next 5 years. No action was taken at that session. At this time, I ask that you join us in our traditional moment of silence. Thank you. I'd like now to ask our student guests from DuPont Manual High School to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would step forward to do so, please. Vice Chair Diane Porter will now read our vision statement.
All JCPS students graduate prepared to reach their full potential and contribute to our society throughout life.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. At this time, Ms. Terry Robinson will present this evening's recognitions.
Thank you. Dr. Hargens, Board Chair David Jones Jr., and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education. This evening, we begin with the recognition of DuPont Manual High School students Matthew Raj, Shravan Ravi Shankar, and Mathan Sabhiswar for winning the National Academic World Quest competition. The competition tests high school students' knowledge of international affairs, geography, history, presents students with the opportunity to be exposed to the world outside our borders, and prepares them for the challenges and opportunities of the 21st century. Board Vice Chair Diane Porter, please come forward to extend congratulations to these outstanding students. Joining in the recognition is their principal, Jerry Mays.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nathan Jones, Seneca High School student who was the Kentucky representative for Congress of Future Science and Technology Leaders, was unable to be with us tonight, so we'll proceed with the next recognition. We are proud to honor Dr. Andrew Kemp, science teacher at Louisville Male High School, as a recipient of the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching. He is one of more than 100 teachers nationwide selected to receive the prestigious award, which is the highest honor bestowed upon mathematics and science teachers. Dr. Kemp will become part of a distinguished network of professional educators who serve as role models for their peers and who are leaders in the improvement of mathematics and science education. Board member Dr. Lisa Wilner, please join Dr. Kemp and congratulate him on his outstanding accomplishment. Joining in the recognition is Area 3 Superintendent Dr. Paige Hartstern. Please come forward. Thank you. Finally, we have the honor of recognizing another distinguished JCPS educator, Faith Stroud, principal of Frost Sixth Grade Academy, for being selected to participate in the Redesign Challenge. Faith, along with 17 educators from across the United States, was selected to participate in the Redesign Challenge Innovators Weekend held in Washington, D.C., which is sponsored by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. She received an all-expenses-paid weekend to collaborate and share ideas on how to tackle the challenge of improving online professional development. The Redesign Challenge is an online community of educators who share experiences and ideas, develop approaches, and turn innovative ideas into real solutions to K-12's toughest challenges. Board Member Chuck Hadaway, please come forward to congratulate Faith. Thank you. Dr. Hargens and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education, this concludes our recognitions for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Robinson. Is there a motion to receive the recognitions? Mr. Brady moves, Dr. Wilner seconds, all in favor? Okay, that passes unanimously. I'd like to add my congratulations to our educators and our students and all of those who support them and make their great work possible. We're proud of all of you, and with that, now that school is underway again, this is the time of the meeting when we invite students, teachers, if they would like to go ahead and leave before the rest of the board meeting and go home and do your homework. Oh, I'm sorry, turn back around. Could the parents of the students please stand up and be recognized? My bad. Thank you, and please pardon my oversight. Thank you, Ms. Porter. Okay. As people file out, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the August 10th and August 20th meetings? Mr. Hadaway moves, Ms. Porter seconds. All in favor? Aye. Those pass. Very good. Now we are at the time for the superintendent's report. So, Dr. Hargens, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Chair Jones, members of the board. It's my pleasure to call to your attention a few items of special interest. As everyone knows, the first day of school was August 12th. We appreciated all the hands on deck on day one, including board members and Mayor Fisher. We were all JCPS ready. Ms. Duncan tagged students at Kenwood Elementary. Mr. Hadaway made announcements at Butler High. Mr. Brady and I and some staff members ate lunch at Ramsey Middle and remember the math lesson we watched. I know Mr. Jones visited Seneca and Goldsmith Elementary. Dr. Wilner and I visited Slaughter, and we actually met a new Compassionate Schools project teacher. Ms. Porter was up at 6 a.m. standing at the center of the universe at the new Maupin Elementary, and we also visited Atkinson Elementary. Ms. Horn and I went to Wilder Elementary and were greeted by the Wildcat mascot. Go Wilder Wildcats. And so here are some images of the first day of school. We're glad you're here at Atkinson Elementary. Then the Partnership for a Green City presented the 2015 Joan Ream Memorial Environmental Leadership Award to Mike Heyman, citizen volunteer for Louisville Metro Government, on Wednesday, August 19th, 2015. I want to make sure, as I promised, that I update you on the implementation timeline of Minor Daniels Academy. And you can see that we successfully opened. And the last thing on the timeline is we'd like to invite you and the community to an open house at Minor Daniels Academy on Friday, August 28th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. On the consent agenda, I'm requesting approval for the policies equal opportunity, discrimination, and harassment for those revisions. This again will make it explicit what the expectations are for our employees and our students. We are proud to have linked arms with other large districts across the country as we signed onto the Males of Color Resolution. Chief Equity Officer John Marshall will tell us and give us a presentation as an information item of how data can really be a catalyst for action. Chair Jones, this concludes my report and my recommendation for approval of the consent agenda later in the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hargens. I believe that we do not need to move to receive your report, so the next item is an action item. the recommendation to approve tax rates for fiscal year 2015 and 16. There are no speakers on this action item, so Dr. Hargens, would you like to make any comments?
Well, actually, CFO Harden will just state the recommendation.
Thank you.
The recommendation is not to raise the tax rate. However, that being said, we actually, because of the increase in assessments, the district will see from local property taxes a $16.3 million increase. That being said, assessments also impact, however, the state SEEK funding. So even though locally we will be receiving additional $16.3 million from our taxpayers, we will actually be receiving a decrease of $9.3 million from the state. That's with all other data points being remaining the same. Assessments in the SEEK formula is one part where that determines how much the state is going to provide districts. So whenever the local assessments increase, then the state portion will decrease. For every additional dollar that we receive from local funding, 57 cents is actually reduced from the state SEEK payments to Jefferson County Public Schools. And that's distributed then throughout the SEEK formula to possibly other districts. In addition, we need to make sure we continue to be aware of unfunded mandates that are within the legislature's purview. And last year alone, we had a $15 million funding gap from the unfunded mandates versus the funding we received from the state. And this year, we estimate there's going to be approximately a $31 million funding gap. And that comes from the mandated salary adjustments, as well as the retirement payments that the district must now have.
Okay, thank you, CFO Harden. Are there questions or comments? Okay, I will, yeah, Chuck? Okay, I'm going to actually just let me call out, I think, because we have a good crowd and the benefit of television. Just to reiterate your very clear points, the growth of the Louisville economy as reflected in the rising value and the new construction of our real estate has produced a $16 million increase at the same tax rate. So JCPS is very wedded to the strength and health of the local economy. Because of the way the state funding works, less than half of that increase out of the bounty of Louisville's economy sticks with us. The rest is distributed around the state. And I think it's really important for Louisvillians to know, and as we go into another gubernatorial election, to make sure our gubernatorial candidates all know that we understand that Louisville is the economic engine of Kentucky. We get that, but we are distributing a good bit of our resources around the state through our property taxes as well as the other forms of taxation. And as we have gone through in the budget discussions before, we do have mandated cost increases that come at us at the state level with which we're working through. All that said, we're pleased to be able to go forward this year to meet our budget plan without raising the tax rate. And I think we all are grateful for the hard work and the recommendation from you and your team, Ms. Harden. So is there a motion? Mr. Hadaway moves, Ms. Porter seconds. All in favor? Okay, the tax rate stays the same for another year. Good. All right. We now move on to information items. And Dr. Hargens, okay, so the report is on the 3-year plan for males of color. We have 4 speakers on the agenda, and I apologize. Should Dr. Hargens introduce it or go immediately to speakers? Do you want to introduce it so people know what the speakers are commenting on, and then we'll Is that okay?
Sure. What Chief Equity Officer John Marshall is going to do is not only review some of the data that informs the action, but some of the action that has taken place to support our males of color. And as I said in my comments, we're part of a large number of urban districts who have linked arms together to make sure that we're supporting all students, but in particular males of color. So that is really what the item is to bring the community and the board up to date with the work that's been going on.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Hargens. Our first speaker is Sadiqa Reynolds. And while Ms. Reynolds comes forward, I will just summarize the rules for each of the 4 speakers. You have 3 minutes to address the board. At the end of, you can sit there or stand there, whatever you prefer. And your time doesn't start until I finish rattling on. At the end of 2.5 minutes, a bell will sound once. At the end of 3 minutes, it will sound twice, indicating that your time is up. And we're pleased to have you here, and take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chair Jones. Thank you to the Superintendent, Vice Chair Porter. It is really a pleasure and privilege for me to be here today. Quite frankly, it is an honor to live in a community with a school board that is willing to support this sort of resolution. And so I am here today to support the work of my colleague, John Marshall, to make sure that everybody here understands that the Mayor's Office is certainly working in conjunction with Mr. Marshall's office and with JCPS in general to ensure that we are collaborating in a way that makes sense for this community and for the young men that we're trying to serve. I hope that you realize that this is long-term work, that we will not see short-term results necessarily, but we're talking about trying to correct and acknowledge systems really of privilege that have been in place for quite some time, quite frankly, not only in this community, but in this country. And so this is not the time to pull back. This is not the time to decide that this is not something that we want, but instead we should be pushing harder. We should be doing more. We should do as much as we can to support these young men in their educational challenges. I think that when I heard Vice Chair Porter read the vision of the JCPS, she said that JCPS students graduate prepared to reach their full potential and contribute to our society throughout life. And so when I think about what the celebration meant to me last year, to be able to participate in the men of color and the boys of color celebration, we celebrated those young men who had a significant GPA and were graduating. So much of what we see every day is about what is wrong. And so can you imagine what it would feel like to constantly be represented by the worst among you, by what is wrong with you? And so what I love about what this work represents is what is best among us and what is right about us. And so I think that it is important that we continue on, that we look at the data, that we constantly review, and that we adjust. I think we must be nimble in this work, and we all have to be committed. JCPS cannot do it alone. The Mayor's Office, the government certainly cannot do it alone. We all need to be committed every single day, and that would include parents as well. And again, I cannot say enough about this school district being willing to sign off on this resolution. Is that a warning? What do I have now?
That's a warning.
Okay. Because while you point out that there are other districts that have done it, but not every district has. And so I think it says something about our commitment. And the reason you are committed to these young people is because you have reviewed the data, you have reviewed the suspension rates, you have reviewed the crime statistics. You understand that we have soldiers fighting with PTSD, but we have people who live in communities that are suffering every day, and so something must be done. So kudos to you for doing the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, Ms. Reynolds, I hope you'll convey our thanks also to the mayor for the city's partnership in this. And I think we would be remiss if we did not also congratulate you on your newly appointed position. All right, thank you. Very good. Our next speaker is Becky Crump. Becky Crump. Thank you, Ms. Crump, for being here. You have 3 minutes. After 2.5, 1 bell. After 3, 2 bells. All yours.
Chair Jones, Vice Chair Porter, members of the Jefferson County Board of Education, and Dr. Hargens, as a parent of two sons who are impacted by this resolution, I thought it was important for me to come forward and voice my support. My sons, who are now 13 and 17, have been in JCPS since kindergarten. And for the most part, we've had a very positive experience, but we've had some challenges and bumps along the way. I think the commitments and strategies outlined in this resolution could go a long way to smooth out some of the bumps and prevent or eliminate some of the challenges many of our young males of color face. No one questions that parenting is the hardest job anyone you'll ever have. And if you have a child for whatever reason that faces challenges or adversity, knowing that they are part of a school system that values them for who they are and is fully committed to their success gives you the assurance and confidence that they are absolutely in the best place possible. We know that supporting young men of color in their teens can lead them to healthy, productive lives, and this resolution demonstrates a firm commitment to that end. It also emphasizes the importance of addressing and not shying away from race, language, culture, and positive role models for all our students. Whether our young males of color have the opportunity to become healthy adults who contribute to their societies and to the community will have a significant impact on our goal of becoming the best urban district in the country. I believe this resolution in support of our male students of color will help give them that opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next speaker is Dewana Hatter. Dewana Hatter, I hope I pronounced the last name correctly. Okay, you have 3 minutes, bell after 2.5, 2 bells after 3.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dewana Hatter, and I'm a graduate of Jefferson County Public Schools, Eastern High School 2005, graduated cum laude from Spalding University in 2012. And I am here to talk about the importance of black males in Jefferson County Public School, not so much of the representation, but more so to plant a seed in someone's life that could change their life potentially. When I entered Eastern High School in 2001, I was a troubled student. It was 179 days of school that year. I was suspended for 134 of them. I had over 70 referrals growing up west of 9th Street in a single parent home, the oldest of 6. I didn't know who I was, and I was struggling to find that identity, that peace. My father was not in my life. So when I got to Eastern, I was fortunate enough to have 2 black men, Mr. Marshall, who was my English teacher at that time, and Mr. Stephen Poindexter, to really pour into my life and let me know the importance of a young black woman in this community. So much to the point to where I was allowed to stay at Eastern High School because of my GPA, and my test scores were so high. They couldn't figure out why they were so high because I was suspended for the majority of the year. But that's what happens when you have people who are willing to invest in your future. So sophomore year, Mr. Marshall decided that he wanted to go on into further leadership, and he became assistant principal, and he decided to stop suspending me and putting me in the honors program. And so with a more rigorous schedule, I was then not able to get in as many fights as I was afforded freshman year because I had homework. And so at the end of sophomore year, a lot of my peers were encouraging me to run for class office, and one of the prerequisites was to only have 3 suspensions. Well, at that time, I had 180. So, but Mr. Marshall, being an assistant principal at that time, he decided to sign the form anyway against all of his peers' opinions, and I ran that campaign like I was running for office of the United States, and I won. So to have that experience, to go from 170 referrals to being class president within 4 years at the same high school, and then going on to attend college and graduate college, being first generation, and then putting on an event in the city to help other students get to that place, I think that this initiative is so important for that reason. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Ms. Hatter. Our next and last speaker on this topic is Vincent James. Vincent James. Okay, Mr. James, while you walk up, I'm required to admonish you 3 minutes, bell after 2.5, and 2 bells at 3. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Good evening. My name is Vincent James. I'm the president of the Interdenominational Ministerial Coalition, and I pastor the Elam Baptist Church. To Chair Jones, to Vice Chair Porter, to Dr. Harkins, to the rest of the board. I'm here to talk about the Males Resolution of Color initiative in terms of the impact that it's had in our community. One of the things I had the privilege of being able to serve and participate in the parent initiative. One of the things we decided to do with our males in particular was that we had a zero tolerance for suspension. We wanted to increase the attendance of our students as well as being able to have them to be successful in school. And so if any one of our students gets suspended, they have to visit with the pastor. They have to acknowledge the fact of what they did and as well as how they can turn that around. One of the things that I'm really excited about in terms of what Jefferson County Public Schools has taken a stand among many of the largest urban district schools is to be able to acknowledge the fact that there's a huge disparity when you look at the numbers and data to identify the disparity among African American males and boys of color. To make a stand to say that we want to make a difference, that we want to look at these numbers and increase them, but not only do that, but use evidence-based initiatives to be able to solve these problems. And it's going to take the entire community. And speaking on behalf of the faith community, one of the things that we have stood strong since this country has been built is the fact that we work together in a collective effort, we can achieve great things. And I believe that we have an opportunity to be able to work with JCPS in the faith community, with the Metro government, and many other community-based organizations to be able to see success and the success rates rise higher, much higher than they have in the past. But it's going to take a community, and it's not just one of the things I love what Chief Conrad had talked about when we looked at the issues in the community. We're not going to police our way out of these situations. One of the things it's going to take is education. And so we're here to let you know that we support the initiative. We're working very hard alongside with you to be able to see a difference. And we're hoping to be able to look 10 years down the road and be able to see a marketable difference in the statistics and the suspension rates and the attendance rates and success in school. And it begins at home when we think about pre-K and the preparation for that. I applaud Metro United Way for being able to make that initiative to be able to work along with parents and students to be able to have success, to be successful as they enter into school. So I want to thank you all for the opportunity to be able to share and to let you know that you have a broad-based community support in the faith community that's ready to stand, ready to work, and excited about being able to partner with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend James. I think now we want to invite Dr. Marshall to come up. Is that right?
Yes.
And tell us about this program that we've heard about.
Good afternoon. Board members, I'd first like to thank you all for taking the initiative to sign this resolution. As many of the people that spoke said, that everyone didn't sign this initiative. And I believe, and it's clear that the board believes, that we do not sign resolutions for compliance purposes. We signed this resolution, and in less than a year, you will soon see how much has been done and how this community has stood up behind us to fortify this work. I'm going to go through some of this data, but you've seen it before and it hasn't changed much since I presented about the equity data. But as we move forward, we need to continue to, can you hear me? I'm sorry. But as we move forward, we need to continue to use this data to drive the work, to consider what are we going to do with our resources in supporting our males of color, to unapologetically, as everyone knows me says, that's what that's my catchphrase, to unapologetically keep going forward and address the disproportionality, celebrate the successes, and not let the outside people that do not know what's going on tell our story, but we tell our own story, and our own story is shared with the community. So moving forward, I hope I can do this right. We're going to take a quick look at some of the data, and you all have seen it. The community behind me has seen it, but we're still going to talk about it quickly. Our males of color our enrollment, as you understand, the majority of our students now look like myself, Charles, Marco, and Giselle. So as we move forward, we understand, as you all as governors of Jefferson County Public Schools and us as citizens, we understand that there might be some things that we have to do different if we're going to reach the majority of our students. So moving forward, I think it's very important that those that did not know until today, this is what they call a majority-minority school district. Our attendance, one of the things that's very interesting, our males of color come to school. Our males of color come to school. So what happens when they come to school is what the data is going to show afterwards. And now everybody needs to lay some of that responsibility at their feet. And this department is very bent on making sure that everyone lays some of that responsibility at their feet. Not just the governors, not just the chiefs of the district, and not Charles, who really shoulders a lot of this, but we all need to. The community behind me as well. So then we have some participation in our special ed classes. And we need to address that. As we move forward, we can talk about at a later date some of the things we're doing to do so. And then, of course, we have our suspension data. I think this board is to the point where we're kind of past, are we disproportionate? We are. How are we going to address it is something that we need to address. So moving forward, you will hear from myself, this department, Dewey's department, and everyone, and you can, if you really think about it, some of the stuff we've already addressed with the changing of our A1 schools and Dr. Hensley's tenacity with addressing our A1 schools and even looking at how we exit students from some of our magnet schools. So it's not just the diversity, equity, and poverty thing. My squad behind me has been very supportive, and we can talk more about that at another date as well. Academic performance, here we are. We need to do more with everyone. And I'll just stop at that. Everyone can do better. When we see our Dr. Radowski, who's no longer here, the most impressive piece of data was a one sheet that showed the bubbles on where our road groups are. Now, the group in which we're talking about, our males or our students of color, are way behind on that achievement line. We understand as governors of this school system that unapologetically we have to address that and call it out. Then here's our here's our college and career readiness. And here's our advanced placement test or participation. So we understand too that in a city where the majority of the students now look like myself, Charles, Giselle, and Marco, what are we going to do to make sure that we're not disproportionate in the participation of our advanced program? And all of that does not lie on the students. It relies on being able to identify students, what giftedness really is, and achievement. So, my favorite, I left my sheet, hold on, I'm so sorry. Because in true Louisville fashion, we come in and don't RSVP. Some more people signed up. So a community that answered the call, you heard 4 people talk about what they are willing to do. I'm going to rattle off as fast as I can all the people that have stood behind us since the initiative. And I want you all to stand up, and then I will call some of our young men that have participated in programs to quickly share with you all what they did. Metro United Way, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and I hope they're standing up. Alpha Phi Alpha, the best fraternity in the world. Omega Psi Phi, Kappa Alpha Psi, Phi Beta Sigma, Code Louisville, Kentuckiana Works, Louisville Urban League, Americana Community Center, Metro Government, La Casita Center, One Love Lou, Parent Initiative, Watchdogs, Boys and Girls Club, Metro Parks, Spread Love Enterprises with Lance Newman, AMP Studios, Center for Women and Families, University of Louisville, Kentucky Refugee Ministries, Urban Chess, Phi Beta Sigma, Rico's Roundtable, Adelante Hispanic Achievers, and I don't know if I've named them, but Literacy in Chess, Literacy in Confidence / Karate, and Americana, and Canaan Family Life Center. So all of these people, if you can turn around and look, are the ones that are with us. And it's very impressive. So I commend the board and my department and the district for doing this work, because again, there were some districts that signed on, but there were some that did not. This can be some uncomfortable work, but this has to be unapologetic work. If I give you the data, there is nothing we can do to shy away from this work and the students that stand behind me. They are quintessential to us becoming the best urban school district. In fact, they deserve all of the attention that we can give them, and so do all the other children. Real quick, I'm going to have Lance Newman with Poetry and Prose speak about their program. I will have Literacy and Confidence. That's my karate kids in the little karate uniforms back here. Coding at the Beach and Literacy and Chess. Just kind of quickly come in to the mic and talk about their work.
Hello, board members. Hello. Very quickly. For Prose to Poetry, what we did was investigate and break down Lord of the Flies. In Lord of the Flies, I'm sure you all have read it before, right? The themes are so related to many of the things that these young men go through on a regular basis. We broke it down, kind of sectioned off the themes, and created poetry that helped relate the material to their everyday lives instead of just reading it and trying to retain the knowledge, right? They retained even more so because the things that they learned or the themes that were in that book, they were able to relate to their real lives. And these are two gentlemen right here. I have Isaiah and Nolan. Both of them are going to tell you a little bit about what they learned in the camp. Reluctantly, they're going to tell you a little bit about them.
Hello, my name is Isaiah Henderson, 15 years of age, Seneca High School, 2018. And with the Poets and Poetry camp, it's 2 weeks. We get up at 8 o'clock, go, and we first it's just like 30 minutes of writing poetry. Then Miss Shauna Evans, I don't know if she's here, then she comes and does the prose part and teaches us about understanding about what we read and understanding poetry. Then he took us to the Courier Journal of a meeting where he did about poetry to get another just event for young black males to do poetry outside of school. And that's what I learned.
Thank you.
I'm Nolan Starks. I attend the Academy of Shawnee. I'm 14 years old, class of 2018. And something I learned when we read the book Lord of the Flies is teamwork is the best. Like, you have to work together with others to achieve things. You can't always work alone. And another theme in the book was you can't trust others, but when they all came together, they all bonded and they all worked like one family, one big family, but alone they never accomplished anything. And the group, it helped me a lot. Like, at first, I thought that teamwork wasn't anything and I could do everything by myself, but when I began to read the book, it helped me realize that you do need others and you're not alone. Everyone else is going through what you are also. Thank you.
Thank you.
So real quickly, I want to go ahead and get my rambunctious group up here that did literacy and chess and literacy and confidence this summer. And I'll have our frisky, one of the best friskies I know, Ms. Hagler. She'll kind of tee it up and let just a few of them talk quickly, gentlemen and ladies.
Chair Jones, Superintendent, and to my district rep, Ms. Porter. I am so grateful to all of you for what you've done and the funding that you provided, but I'm not going to tell you anymore. I'm going to let you see what it's doing, and then I'm going to ask you to continue it forever. Here, talk. Tell me your name.
My name is Robert Rojas. I attend to Wheatley Elementary, and I go to literacy and chess.
My name is Malachi, and I attended the Literacy and Chess program at Wheatley Elementary School. My name is Joseph, and I attended to literacy and karate.
I want to tell you, we've had 3 of these literacy camps. The first one was at spring break. Literacy and chess was at California Community Center. Then this summer, we had literacy and chess at Wheatley, and then we had literacy and confidence, which was held at BIC. The one at Wheatley focused on chess as this counterpart, this enrichment piece, and at BIC it focused on karate. It taught, both of those events taught so much. The books that they read, the camaraderie that they built. This young man over here talked about how it took a team, how you had to learn to work together. All of these camps taught these young people that. In the end, what it gives them is opportunities and it gives them possibilities. Things that you can't put your fingers on and you can't put a dollar amount to, they're receiving it because you all have said yes to what this department is proposing. Thank you so very much.
Good evening. My name is Justin Jones. I'm here to represent Coding at the Beach. Well, I'm 15 years old. I attend Ballard High School. In Coding at the Beach, we have 7 students right now who took a 13-week program, meeting Tuesdays and Thursdays at Beach Terrace to learn HTML, JavaScript, and basically how to make a website. But it wasn't just the Tuesdays and Thursdays, it was at home working to learn how to do these things because 2 days a week was not enough. We worked at home because we got computers from Google, and so we were able to get online and actually take time to do this. And one thing it actually taught me is how to work with people that I didn't even talk to at school. They just stuck with it, and so did I. So I got to meet new people and learn how to form a team out of that. And at the end of the 13 weeks, we decided to actually form a company, Beach Technologies. And right now we have 25 clients at the end of 7 weeks. And moving forward, we are meeting with sponsors now to continue this, along with paying for the building. We're not really paying for the building, but the payroll, 8 hours a week. And so, yeah, and we're also moving forward to make this high school credit for one of our classes because this is a continuous and it's vigorous and very tedious at it. So, thank you. Thank you.
So, real quick, and then I will turn it over to Charles Davis. So that's just a snapshot of the work that we're doing and moving forward. I'm sure that we will be doing more. And again, I want to thank the community for stepping up. The minute we signed this, I mean, there were calls that said, let's do this together. So we've had some long-standing community members and some new ones. But I wanted the board to see that this resolution was not a practicing compliance. And if we're moving forward, that we have to continue to do more of this kind of work, especially if you look at the data that polluted the young men's presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Charles, and he will talk about a little more of some of the things that we're doing.
Just really quickly going through some of the things that we're currently doing. I myself am a huge proponent of not doing a lot of things halfway and doing a few things really, really well. And what the resolution actually did was provide a keen focus on the things that we should actually be concentrating on. So I'll just talk about a couple of those initiatives that speak to the resolution and the work that we've been doing. So part of the resolution was to look at the college and career readiness of JCPS Mills O'Color, in particular financial aid and FAFSA completion, applying to colleges, and raising scores on the ACT. So what we were able to do was to sponsor a college and career readiness series, which featured an ACT boot camp to provide participants with strategies to score higher on ACT, which of course is a huge determinant of college acceptance and also scholarship acceptance. We were able to host a financial aid and FAFSA workshop for not only students but also their parents to come and, one, have the opportunity to fill out the FAFSA, but two, to learn about how to navigate the world of financial aid as they matriculate to higher education. And then lastly, we had a free college application event where individuals were able to actually complete the Common App and actually speak to some university representatives that came on site. Professional development. We've done a lot of professional development. Some of the topics that we've looked at are culturally responsive strategies for de-escalation in schools, so that addresses some of the disciplinary inequities. Looking at emotional intelligence, understanding boys in the classroom, and just some of the different ways that adolescent males may react differently than their peers in various environments. Working effectively with African American males, microequities, school climate killer, and then engaging urban students through contextualizing teaching. Next, one of the programs that we sponsor is the Street Academy in partnership with the Louisville Urban League. And in the past, one of the challenges has been, how do we get more boys into this program? So we partnered with the city government around the Zones of Hope initiative, and we actually increased our sites from 2 sites to 4 sites and located them in schools that are also parts of the Zones of Hope. And I'm happy to say that we were able to increase our number enrolled from 69 students last year to over 100 to 101 students this year. Last year we had regular participation of 32%. This year we had regular participation of 76%, which is 137% increase in participation. And that really could not have been done without the participation of the Zones of Hope and the Louisville Urban League in making this switch. So some of the big ideas, and I'll look at the compilation of data. So we have all this data, but looking at how do we compile it and be able to check on it regularly to monitor the progress in these various areas. Another large idea is to expand the Street Academy model to not only include young men in the 4th and 5th grade, but to expand it to middle school and high school students. One of the initiatives that I worked in my previous position with Cincinnati Public Schools did just this thing, and we were able to spread this initiative to over 500 young men across the district from grades 4 through 12. To facilitate a quarterly speaker series to bring in nationally renowned individuals to talk about best practices in the field and working with males of color around the country. Improving practice through research. I know I'm in grad school right now, and I see many of my professors back here, and one of the things that we're always talking about is how do we move theory to practice? And so partnering with a great university like the University of Louisville, Spalding, Bellarmine, and those things of those nature, we can begin to actually look at this data, talk about what best practices are, and begin to publish these results, because we are, for those who don't know, we are ahead of the curve with a lot of this work as it speaks nationally. And lastly, the intentional inclusion of this resolution and its activities into the Vision 2020 strategic plan, as was noted in the original resolution.
So we end with, in my department, we always have to put this cartoon up. So we end with this cartoon and open it up for any questions.
Okay, board members, do we have questions? Yes, Ms. Porter.
I don't have any questions, but I have a few remarks that I prepared, wrote it down so I wouldn't ramble. Before I start on my remarks, the young man from the Lord of the Flies, would you stand up for me for a minute? Because when I came to see you, I came back to this group and said to them that you all were willing to do something over Thanksgiving and Christmas. So would you confirm that you told me that you were willing to work over Thanksgiving and Christmas? Is that what you said to me? Okay, thank you, sir. So you can sit down. Just want to make sure that I wasn't telling any stories. I came back with the truth. I'd like to talk a little bit about the males of color and the work that has been done, and to congratulate everyone that has helped us to be successful. When Dr. Hargens and I had the opportunity to be in the room with President Obama and other educators from the Council of Great City Schools, I realized the long-term importance of the resolution. This was not about one school district, it was much more. I'm proud of the work of our district, Dr. Hargens, our Diversity, Equity, and Poverty Department, the leadership of John Marshall, and I'm proud of everyone in the district that makes this possible for our young men, because it is something that we must do, not something that we may do a little bit, it's what we must do. I'm very proud that our board signed the resolution and is moving forward with the work. Years ago, Dr. Lyman Johnson addressed our Board of Education. He talked about the minority becoming the majority. Dr. Johnson said that whenever the majority is not served, the fallout will be irreparable. JCPS is known for the work we have done and will continue to do. We have had an opportunity to share our equity scorecard with other districts from the Council of Urban School Boards of Education. They commented on the transparency and the delivery plan explanation. The data is clear. I will not go back over what John Marshall has presented. There's a clear need for the work that we're doing in various aspects, and he hit most of those aspects tonight. It's important that we embrace our programs for males of color. We're working with Metro Louisville, Louisville Urban League, with the street academies, the beach, and the community, Metro United Way. Our programs this summer you've heard about. This work is critical. I have learned this year that tomorrow is not promised. We must make every day count. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. Other comments? All right, I'm not going to try to top that, but I am going to try to extend it real quickly. I completely endorse Ms. Porter's must do. We must do this. And I think all the board members reiterate our commitment to doing this. But I want to extend it just a little bit. I think when we hear about beach technologies, that's a great example of we want to do this. What kind of a community will we have if we have dozens or hundreds of beach technologies blooming and pull out the strengths of all of our students? So thank you all, and thanks to all of the supporters for helping us get all of our talent on the field and begin to measure how we're all doing. Thank you very much, and please continue and push the good work. Okay, we move now to the consent calendar. There are no tie bids this evening, and I want to express my appreciation to the board members who have given notice ahead of time of their desire to pull down several items. I'll list the ones I know about, and then if there are others, please call them out. Ms. Horn wants to pull down item I so that she can abstain from it. Ms. Porter wants to abstain on the contracts for the Louisville Urban League, which are item L. Ms. Duncan wants to vote on items R and T separately. R is the location of a couple of the Board of Ed meetings, and T is the anti-discrimination, anti-harassment policy. And I guess we will try to stall for a minute while people go ahead and exit. Are there any other items that people need to pull down?
Yeah.
Chuck?
No.
Sorry, Mr. Hadaway, did you have a?
D.
D is in David.
And M.
D and M. Thank you. And Ms. Duncan?
Q7.
And Q.
And T.
Q7. T, we already said T. Yeah, T. T is in Tom, right?
Right, but you said you were going to separate vote on it. But I want to talk about it too.
Okay, but so we've got, okay, let me run through them again. We've got D, I, M, Q7, R, and T. And Chris?
I'd like to pull down item L to discuss.
Okay, and L. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going to put my notes in a slightly different and understandable order. Okay, very good. Item D is approval of addition to extra service salary schedule. Who pulled that one down?
I did.
Okay, Chuck, would you like to ask a question about that?
Yes, I'll be brief about it. I just need more definition besides the summary statement that we have there. What is exactly going on here? And And on the item that was attached to it, how do athletic directors, how are they involved?
And actually, I can answer that. Athletic directors, that was just added to the scale that had athletic directors. So athletic directors currently is on the extra duty scale. So what this is asking for is approval to add 2 pieces to the extra duty salary structure. One would be to reimburse a current experienced turnaround principal when there is a need to place that principal working very, very closely with an inexperienced priority school principal. So what we are trying to do is create a pay structure that would allow principals to stay in the principalship, doing the important work of turnaround, but assist a colleague, an inexperienced colleague, in a very structured way. So the only relationship between athletic director and this is that it's on the extra duty schedule. The other pay is for implementation of the Master Ford NGL, Next Generation Learning Plan. We have this great plan that the community developed. Now we've got to execute. And in discussions, the best people to execute the plan are people on the ground that are close to the work. So we would be giving the opportunity for experienced principals who are being successful with the work to be the leader in their area and actually help the other principals be as successful as well. On the second, so the first is to create a pay structure that the district would use when a need arises to support an inexperienced turnaround priority school principal. The second, the Jefferson County Education Foundation will actually support paying 3 sort of executive coach, implementation coach principals for the Ford NGL project. So what you're doing is approving a pay structure that would allow that to happen.
Thank you.
Okay, great. No other questions on that. The next is item I, approval of bid tabulations. And this, Ms. Warren, is you would like to be recused from this and not vote on it. So there's no discussion required of that. Unless anybody else has a question, we will move on to L. L is in Lucy, which is approval of professional service contracts of $5,000 or more. Chris.
Yes, I just need to just explain my particular vote on this particular item. I will be abstaining from it. I had asked for specific information about this program. We had received a high-level evaluation of that earlier this afternoon.
What program are we talking about?
The Street Academy contracts. That's a part of item L.
Yep.
And we had received a high-level overview and evaluation of that, but I'd asked for specific information, was told I was going to get that information, but didn't. So therefore, I don't feel I have enough information to really make one vote one way or the other, so therefore I'm abstaining.
Okay. M. We'll call down M. Okay, Chuck?
I don't need this answer right now. I can get it later if that's available. There is a, pardon me, I'm going to find the page. The Louisville Orthopedic money. Kentucky Orthopedic Rehabilitation. Certified trainers for 12 high schools. I think that has been shared with us before, but I'm curious of which 12 high schools have the ability to have trainers funded by this grant, or this contract, I'm sorry.
Okay, and this is, if I am reading this correctly, unlike L, where we were asked for approval, this is acceptance of a monthly report. Do you want to not vote on that one? Or
No, I'm willing. I just want further information.
Okay.
I'm supportive of it, willing to accept it. I just want to be reminded of those 12 schools. I remember they were mentioned before, but I don't remember what those are.
Okay, very good. Okay, Q7, which is approval of memorandum of agreement with U of L to develop an equity responsive climate. Ms. Duncan?
Yes, I just would like somebody to talk a little bit about what we're going to use to measure an equity responsive climate. I mean, this is a $400,000 investment for 4 years, I mean, it's $400,000 altogether, $100,000 a year investment in creating equity responsive climates. But I would like to know what that's going to look like and how are we going to measure that?
So 2 things, and I will call up the U of L squad that's partnering with JCPS, Dr. Carpenter and Dr. Guy Jean-Marie to the table. But as they come up, some of the things that I can guarantee you, just in our strategic work plan, we talked about check for capacity of staff, a theory of action to teach and develop so that students' engagement and achievement will improve, aim higher and don't define child success. And these were all things said within the last 2 hours. In the finance work group, we talked about we're going to have to move money around. So we might have to move money around for these kind of programs. We talked about using technology. We talked about meeting people where they are. We talked about using feedbacks and surveys. We say that we want a culturally proficient system. Our students are, proficiency in JCPS is students demonstrate a broad understanding of concepts and content. If we're a culturally proficient school system, our governors and our teachers and our principals have to be proficient in that as well. This group, U of L, just like the Bellarmine Project, have an idea and some notions and some surveys and some more in-depth ideas on what we can do as relates to this equity project. But I also, as we looked at the summaries, and I just got all this today, the majority of the things that are 50% and over speak to equity in our strategic plan. So this program that we're asking to lay out will address every last thing that's, the majority of things, all of the things that are over 55% of interest in administrators' response speaks to equity out of a response of 174 people. So I will not do them as much justice. This, we talk about national experts. Now you have 4 sitting at the table that stood up after the Males of Color resolution and can answer this as well. So Ms. Duncan, I will let you address the questions to this all-star team.
All righty. Have you done this before in other schools, in other districts?
I'm from Oklahoma, University of Oklahoma, prior to the University of Louisville, working with school districts to support learning conditions to help increase student achievement.
And what will, when you're through with a school and you pronounce it, that you've seen it, that it is an equity responsive climate in the building, are those things that John named, are those are the things that you're going to be looking for? You're not tying this to scores in particular, but you're trying to tie it to some of those measures that he said so quickly I can't remember all of them now. But,
yes. We start with what is the environment where principals and school members are cognitively, affectively, and behaviorally engaged to create this equity responsive climate. And if there's high levels of equity responsive climate, how does that then influence the instructional climate where teachers collectively work together, collective efficacy, teachers trust in themselves, and then how does that also influence learning conditions for students? Because if it's high levels, if the presence is there where the school collect that collective perceptions that they're working together to help create this environment where students are connected, teachers are connected, it should change the instructional environment and then has the potential to increase student achievement. So it's really our theory of action to really take stock of where they are in terms of addressing cultural competence, cultural proficiency.
Yeah, I just want to say that for those of you that don't know me, I work primarily with aspiring principals or current principals that are working on their EDS, EDD, or PhD. And one of the things that this effort really is trying to leverage is helping school leaders make sense of the environment that they currently work in and helping them to understand the levers necessary to change that to a more equitable and responsive environment for all students. And so what we want to see is, with all the positive pressures being placed on school leaders today to address a lot of these issues that we've talked about tonight, is give them the tool set so that they can be successful in those endeavors. Right now, while the district is giving professional development specific areas, we think that we can add to that, and part of this plan is to provide intermittent professional development to aspiring leaders and leaders that are currently in schools.
And we feed back information to the district through the reports to really gauge where they are as they move through this work with us over the next 4 years. So it feeds back for improvement. This is what's working well, but this is what's not working well in this area, and what improvements you need to make to feed back to the principals to take ownership of this. So the teachers, parents, if it's present, students and teachers' perception will reflect that perception. And that's the critical piece, is to really connect the glue of school members within and outside the school to create this kind of environment to support teaching and learning.
Let me just ask this, well, if you'll go ahead, if you have something to add there, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say it ties together, the initiatives going on within the schools. It also is tying in together what we're doing to prepare principals, also within our teacher education programs. So it's hitting on a lot of different aspects of what's going on within the school that's tying together the community, because if you have a very responsive environment at school, what's going really well and what more is there to learn from the other schools. With the positive behavior support initiative you're also adopting, ties directly in to, if you're looking at close to the disparities, behavioral achievement within those certain schools, what's going really well, what's meshing with the leader, the teachers, the students, the community there. That feeds directly into what we're doing at our institution, other institutions, as we get this work out and start sharing that information.
Have you already identified the schools that you're going to be working with, or what will help you identify those?
We're using the equity scorecard, to help get a sense of how the district has identified the work to date in terms of where they are. So that's going to be our baseline to use as a criteria. And then from that, we'll administer the survey to really get a sense of where we are. And we're starting with also getting a sense of where principals, to get their perception. What does it mean to be culturally proficient? What are the values that support that? To collect that information to feed back to them.
I just want to say too that we've done some small scale work in schools like Seneca with the partnership of Michelle Dillard and Kim Harbolt and Joe Elliston, and what we see is this is an opportunity to really take this to a larger scale and to benefit more principals across the district, so we're really excited about that.
Do all of you work at the same time? I mean, do you all work together and do different things with the principals, or how do you do that?
We're a diverse team, so we have a lot of different skill sets on the team. This is our quantitative expert in the field, and we have Dr. Dumas, who brings quantitative and qualitative aspects to the table, as well as practitioner experience. And then Dr. Gaetan Jean-Marie's vita and work with public school districts across the nation is extensive. And I'm a former practitioner that has a PhD in policy and works closely too. So we'll all be employing, as well with graduate students, et cetera, a team approach to this effort.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Maybe this is not fair because it's a tiny bit off topic, but since we get so many of our teachers from your program, what can we expect as a district that the teachers we hire out of U of L have in terms of cultural proficiency?
One of the implications of the study in terms of what will feed back to school, it has implication for teacher preparation programs. Because if we're identifying for you what are those challenges, what's not working with your current pool, your in-service teachers, then what are the implications for higher education, for preparation program? And those become important to feed back to the institutions within Kentucky.
I was just going to say, as you're well aware, that sometimes higher ed is a little siloed. And so what we started to do at the University of Louisville is to work with our teaching and learning departments. So they will be a part of looking at data, helping make sense of data. And then what we're trying to do on the campus is really build a P12 continuum where teacher preparation folks and leadership preparation folks share that data and have those conversations together, so all of our candidates leave more prepared and more willing to do what's necessary to help the achievement of these students.
And if I may add real quick, Dr. Carpenter left it out. Dr. Carpenter and Dr. Cherie Dawson from the College of Juvenile Justice is also creating a class around restorative language in public schools. So that's going to be an elective that should be up and running either in January or August. So, and we all know this, U of L is very intentional about the work they're doing around educational equity. So I forgot to add that part of it as well.
Okay. I'm going to be like Dr. Wilner and be a little bit unfair, but as long as we have a distinguished academic group in front of us, I have a sense that the language that we use when we talk about things related to, to cultural competence, all of these things is beginning to shift. And I wonder, the new terminology that is popping up more and more for me, one is trauma-informed schools, and this has been very much part of our discussion, particularly in the alternative school merger. Another is cultural humility, which to me seems like a very constructive personal approach to try to bring to some things. But can you tie this together just a little bit maybe for the board? What, are these distinct concepts? Should we think of this as all within the body of work that you and your colleagues at the university and the leadership of the district are working on? Apologies for the obscure question if that's what it is.
What you're describing is using positive psychology.
Mm-hmm.
If you read the language of the report the proposal we've put together, it doesn't use a deficit lens.
Right.
And that's why the assumptions we make being in an equity responsive climate, to the extent the schools will work with or are not, that will allow us to then embed professional development to get them to that level. Mm-hmm. So what you've described is really using positive psychology, because there's a lot of deficit, and there's been funding to support that at-risk language. Mm-hmm. And what we wanted to make investment, how do we use positive psychology around the work that we use to support teaching and learning? Our kids come from challenged homes, but the fact that they do come, what can we do to create an environment to support them?
I think to your point, you see this also in the school turnaround literature. It's,
right.
There's a new terminology given to that, every 5 years as the cycle continues. There's some core tenets, though, of school turnaround or in equity responsive climate, cultural proficiency, cultural competency that we're looking at. And so what we want to do, the bottom line is reduce gaps and help principals be able to better reduce gaps. And I think you'll see that as the language continues to evolve.
Okay, well, thank you, and I guess we don't want to turn this into another work session where the board just learns. We have to carry on, but thank you for answering our questions, and good luck with your work. All right. Linda, do you want me to have a separate vote on that item, or did you just want to ask your questions?
Actually, on R, you're talking about?
No, it was Q7.
Oh, no, that was it. I did it.
Okay, that one. So that one we just vote all together.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're now on to item R, which involves the location change for 2 of the board meetings, and I believe you pulled that one down also.
Yes, I did. I'm still struggling with that one, and probably going to go ahead and not have to have a separate vote on it. But I just want to recognize the fact that we have so many people who give extra time in order for us to do those meetings away from here, and don't get home sometimes till 3 o'clock. And while we see a benefit, it's not all just about us. There are these other great staff that have to move equipment and go in and put things down and drive miles out of their way. And so that was my hesitation in supporting these off-site things. And of course, I always, look at, well, is this helping student achievement? Because we're spending money on something other than student achievement. But I think at this point, I've attended 2 of them, and so I'll do 2 more and see how we do.
Okay, Ms. Porter.
Just wanted to make a quick comment about the board meetings that we've hosted in our local schools. The feedback that I've gotten from my district and from my community is that folks were excited to be there. It was an opportunity to sit down and have dinner with students and the business community and the academic community. So I think that for us to reach out. We started this with our community conversations, actually. That was our first effort to be in the neighborhood, in the community that we serve. So all the feedback that I have gotten from folks in District 1, the district that I represent, is that they liked the idea. It gives us an opportunity to see schools and to be sometimes in a situation where it's easier for people to get to us, to see us and to talk to us and see how we work. And as we go out and about in everyone's district, it's an opportunity for us all to learn. So I understand that it takes some of us longer. It takes me forever to get someplace, but I've been home so far before 3 a.m. And I just think that it's important. It's easy to sit here and talk and make a whole lot of decisions, but it's important to me to be out and develop relationships with the community that we represent.
Okay, thank you. And I will just echo Ms. Duncan's point, though, about the hard work that goes into putting on those meetings in remote locations, and express the board's appreciation to the people who do that. We do appreciate that, but we do, I think, also feel pretty strongly that it's not our job just to sit here and listen. We got to get out and open our own eyes as well. So on the last item that is pulled down, item T, which is approval of board policies, equal opportunity, discrimination, and harassment. Ms. Duncan?
Okay, well, I just want everybody to understand this is not about one policy or one section of a policy for me. This is about the whole bundle of policy information that we get through harassment, discrimination, and equal opportunity. And one of the things that I'm concerned about is the fact that I think it was kind of a flawed process for arriving at this. Our stakeholders, we had some stakeholders who were involved, but we did not have assistant principals, we did not have assistant superintendents, we did not have due process staff, we did not have board members. And you know, that's our main job, is one of our main jobs is to oversee and develop policy. And so I just went back and I wanted to quote this. According to board policy 01.5, the legal responsibility for policy or for policy making belongs to the board. To the extent practicable, district employees to be affected by a decision shall have the opportunity to participate in or have input in the decision making. And it lists several items, and among those is the development of policy. And I think we excluded a lot of people who have a big stake in policy and in decision making. And I know for the board, that's one of our areas we're supposed to oversee. So we were not included in that. And I think that's one thing that concerned me. And then we came up with wording. Of course, I think this was in here, but this kind of wording is disturbing to me, that we say, oh, yep, let's go ahead with that. It's a definition of harassment and discrimination, and it says harassment and discrimination is unlawful behavior based on an individual's actual or perceived race, color, ancestry, and then proceeds to list all of the protected categories. If harassment is just that, then the guy that is teased at school because he has a big nose and somebody calls him elephant nose and he's not in a protected category, how do administrators view that when it says in particular here it's unlawful behavior? It's not unlawful and he's not a protected category. So to me, it's not equal protection language in here. And I think the problem with so many of these changes in here is we've created policy that is difficult to enforce, almost impossible to enforce, make promises that are almost impossible to keep, and mislead people to think, well, I'm listed here, so I'm going to be okay. And policies that are unclear, policy statements in here that are unclear, which leads to administrators being inconsistent in how they respond to situations. So my concern is through all of those, and for those reasons. And then I think KSBA had a reluctance to support this because they quote from policy, from board policy. It's policy 1.5 again. It is intended that these policies shall cover matters within, I hesitate in my reading because my handwriting is so bad. It is intended that these policies shall cover matters within the authority of and discretion of the board, and not matters otherwise required by law or regulation. So actually, we aren't supposed to be even adding categories in here. That would be a violation of our own policy to add categories that are covered by state and federal law. So I'm just running into many issues on this bundle of policies that we have, not one particular aspect of it. And let me go back to my other paper. You know, I've tried to tell you all my concerns, my reservations all along, so that you would know what was troubling me in these things. And I don't know that it has made any difference, but I have at least expressed that all along. And I'm just fearful here. We're giving up authority when we let other groups change policies that are, and we're not even involved in it. You know, the other groups change, and our district people that should be aren't involved in it. We're ceding some of that authority, and I don't think that's a very good precedent for us. So that's the reason I want to vote on this separately, because I think the whole bundle needs further review before we give the okie dokie to it.
Okay. Actually, go ahead, Mr. Hadaway.
I need to explain a little bit too, because in the work session I gave some questions, and I have some of the same concerns that Board Member Duncan has. I was concerned about the process, who was involved, and really for a disclaimer for everything. Ms. Duncan and I were on a policy committee last year that this was talked about, maybe informally, maybe not formally, but it was talked about at some time. So when this was presented, I needed further insight on why things had changed and why our policy did not cover what is intended by these words. I still don't understand totally the term genetic information. I still haven't found out why affiliations have been added to the political. And I also don't understand why expression is added to one category but implied in the other categories. But I will tell you this, that in the time that I have had announced why I had hesitation is I've had plenty of conversations that have given me a lot of enlightenment. And I still think that this policy was written in a process that I feel uncomfortable with, and that I felt like there should be some more people involved. I would argue that, you know, as board members, we are having our say now about it. And I have heard from a lot of people. I will vote the voice that I've heard, and I will, I'm thankful for the insight. Something like this, in my opinion, should be presented with a little bit more background, why it's coming forth, what's the reasoning behind it, because as I said, because I was coming from a point that we had dealt with this and what has changed, and I understand change comes, but it would have been helpful to have a little bit more background, a little more oomph behind it, finding out why we're doing this.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hadaway. Let me just take a moment and summarize where we are in the consent agenda process. I apologize for being a little bit nerdy here, but we have 5 items on which to vote separately. We have 1 speaker on this item that we've most recently been talking about. And my inclination is to go through the first 4 items, then come back to this item T, hear from our speaker, see if there are any other comments, and then vote on that one last and move along. Is that acceptable to everybody? Okay, then let me do this, and Kathy or Frank, will you look at me and shake your head vigorously if I've messed up in some way? So I think what I would like, Dr. Hargens has moved adoption of the consent calendar. We have in effect amended that motion so that all items except item D as in David, I, L as in Lucy, R as in Ralph, and T as in Tom. So all items except those 5, I would now entertain a motion to adopt those items of the consent calendar. Okay, Ms. Duncan moves. Is there a second? All right, Ms. Horn, all in favor? Aye. Okay, those 5 are adopted. Now, item D, which is, that's the extra service salary schedule.
Now, Chair Jones, I didn't ask for that to be voted
Okay, I
on
apologize.
separately.
Then can we all just nod and say we included item D in the one we just passed? That was my error, excuse me. All right, so item D is approved.
Point of order, can we just go ahead and
Okay,
vote on that
you
separately?
move.
Because we
All
just
right.
want to make sure everything's right.
Okay, you move it.
Yep.
Hadaway seconds it. All in favor? Okay, very good. So D is adopted. I is approval of bid tabulations, competitive negotiation, contract renewals, et cetera. And I believe, okay, so is there a motion? Okay, Chris moves. All right, Lisa seconds. All in favor?
I'm
Okay,
abstaining.
and you're abstaining on that one. That's the issue, okay. So everyone approves that except for Horn, who abstains on I. Very good. Now we are on to L, which is professional service contracts of 5,000 or more. That's the one where you're abstaining, right?
And
Okay, all right. So is there a motion on that one?
I have a question.
Please.
The way that's laid out, there are multiple contracts on there, so I have to abstain for the voting for the Street Academy, but I do not have to abstain for the voting for the other contracts that are listed on there, so I'm not trying to drag this out.
So how many people are going to abstain? So you're going to abstain from one of them, you're going to abstain from one of them, and Steph, are you abstaining? No. Anybody else abstaining? Okay, so you can just abstain from the whole thing. It won't have an effect. I think if that's right, it'll be 5-0 and 2 abstaining.
And
So
could I say why?
Yeah, please.
I am abstaining from the vote for the Street Academy because I currently serve on the board of the Louisville Urban League. And because of that, I cannot vote on this as much as you heard me support it a little bit earlier.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion on item 8L? Okay, Ms. Horn moves. Is there a second? Ms. Brady seconds. All in favor? Okay, and all abstaining. Okay, 2 abstentions and no. So 5. Okay, raise your hand again if you approve. All right, Brady, Horn, Jones, Wilner, and Duncan approve. And I'm sorry, Hadaway. Sorry, Hadaway, and then Brady and Porter abstain.
It carries.
It carries. Motion carries. Absolutely. 5-0. All right, and then now we are on to item R, which is location change. Is there a motion to approve location change? Whoops, okay, Wilner moves, Brady seconds, all in favor? Aye, okay, that looks like it's unanimous. Very good. Thank you, apologies for that interlude. Now we are going to invite Michael Frederick, who has signed up to speak on item 8T. Michael Frederick, are you here? Looks like there is no speaker on 8T. So is there any other board discussion or comment? Yes, Mr. Hadaway.
Yeah, I think in the area of harassment and policy and everything, the overriding message should always be that JCPS wants every student safe in the classroom to learn, and every administrator, every teacher in a safe environment to help our children learn. I think that is the overriding message with this policy and why I'm going to vote the way I'm going to vote. And there are words in here that are magnetic, and I thought it got away from the focus of what the spirit of the policy, the review, and why it's there is the most important thing.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Brady.
I just want to mention the fact that, you know, I shared a very personal story when last we met, and I'm not going to go into that again, but just want to say that, you know, I've gotten a considerable amount of feedback on that, and that was very mostly positive. And in fact, I've actually been pleasantly surprised by not just the reaction to that particular story, but also by the amount of feedback I've gotten from the community regarding this particular issue. I've gotten very little negative feedback regarding it, and mostly very supportive feedback for adoption of this particular policy change. One other thing I do want to mention, there was mention that the board should defer to state or federal law regarding this item. There is no state or federal law regarding this item.
Regarding protected categories.
Regarding protected category for LGBTQ, and so there, you know, if you want to be a fan of John Oliver, he tackled this last Sunday. So you know, it was discussed then, and if you do decide to Google that, beware of the language. But there's no overriding protections regarding this, and that's how come there are actually very few states that actually have this on their books, and Kentucky is not one of them. Our local community is, but not our state. So just want to clarify that particular issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Ms. Porter.
Just real quickly, I want to say that I have received numerous emails today and yesterday and all weekend about voting for this, because I did support it in the first reading. And I think it's important that, as Mr. Hadaway said, the population we serve and our staff, that discrimination is not anything that I can ever support, that I will support. And having been on this earth for a number of years, I know what it's like, and I don't appreciate it, and I would not wish it for our students or our staff. So because of that, I will support this policy with the understanding that the superintendent will come back to the board and explain to us the procedures as to how everything will be taken care of. But I will not ever support discrimination.
Ms. Porter, I think a position is not against or is not for discrimination. For me, the position, I mean, no, I worked 10 years as assistant principal, and believe me, justice was on my mind every time I did anything. But I had to have policies that were clear to me and that I could go to court with. And I'm saying, I mean, what my position is, that's not what's in here beyond the first policy or first statement about discrimination.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Anybody else?
Yeah. I'll add to that, and I don't know that it was a barb thrown by Ms. Porter or not, but a position is not a stand for discrimination in my opinion either. I've explained why I voted against this before. I will vote in the spirit of what I think this policy is accomplishing today, though. But that's been part of my frustration in trying to ask some questions. I got cornered into a slot where people said I was for discrimination. I got a lot of emails today, and some of them swung the harassment hammer my way, and I was disheartened by that because I was about the procedure, I was about the policy implementation, I was about the timing and the training, and also really, in my limited knowledge, I needed to have a little more explanation or highlighting on why we're adding some language. And so my frustration was because I voted a certain way, people were saying that I was being discriminating, and that was disheartening because that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure that we followed the process because policies are so important, including this one, which is of the utmost importance. And as I said, the spirit of it is very good for me, and the spirit of it is we're going to have a safe environment.
Okay. Thank you. I want to respond a little bit. As board chair, it's my duty to try to structure the agenda so that everybody feels like they have a chance to review the proposals and get into the policies. So to the extent colleagues feel rushed and boxed in, I apologize for that. My perspective on this discussion and this review has been that it has been it's taken place over a fairly long time. There was a committee of administrators, community members, and students who met a number of times. I think it, like our own work groups, which we talked about earlier today, it took a while to get going. But at the end of the day, there was an internal procedure that led to the development of a recommendation. There was clarity, I felt, from our general counsel in the language, very clear report and responsiveness to board members' questions. A lot of those questions were really around the question of precedent and where is the language coming from? Is the language appropriately tried and tested, given that we are a big organization and we do live in a litigious country and litigious times. So my perspective is that the policy has been adequately ventilated and discussed. I think it's always tough to know, nobody ever has enough time to really get to the bottom of a lot of the complicated issues. And speaking only for myself, I will say the issues surrounding transgender equity and non-discrimination are ones that required a lot of learning on my part. So, I think this is one of those where on the one hand we could always take more time, but on the other, it's not our job to become the universal experts. It's our job to allow the district to grow and move forward. So I guess I will try to do a better job of organizing the agendas, and I thank all of my colleagues for the time and attention that they put into this. But I do think it's time for us to go ahead and vote. And I will say, I want to conclude my remarks with a thank you to the people who have helped me understand this issue. A lot of them are people who are older than me or my peers, adults who have helped me understand policy and precedent and psychology and human physiology and psychology, but a larger number of them are a lot younger. This is one where teach your parents well may perhaps be the motto. So I'll just conclude with a thank you, and I would entertain a motion to approve T. Okay, Ms. Horn moves, Mr. Brady seconds. All in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay, the motion carries 6-1. Thank you all very much for your good discussion of this, and we have now concluded, I believe, the consent agenda. All right, now I believe we are going into item 9, board reports, requests, and planning calendar. Are there any reports from the board? Ms. Duncan.
Well, I was just going to comment on the opening day. Dr. Harkins has already mentioned meeting there at Kenwood and how much fun that was to put those tags on the backpacks and watch the efficiency of the staff in handling all those buses. But also attended the college-going session. I think that was sponsored by 55,000 Degrees. And we had some great panelists and student panelists and experts from several different fields, including a superintendent from Eminence. But I thought we've been given another tool to evaluate how well we're doing in educating or preparing our kids at the bottom of the scale and at the top of the scale, and how we're moving and getting kids college ready at all levels. I mean, the important part to me was that I saw both groups, both sections that were compared, trending upward. So that has to be good. But and then we had the meeting with Matt Bevan, and that was a very interesting meeting because he shared his views of the workings of JCPS with us, and it was very interesting to hear his perspective on how we're doing and what we're doing.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have a report? Dr. Will.
Maybe this is a request and not a report.
That would
so
be fine.
is that
Requests
okay?
are also welcome.
This is a wonderful night for equity. All that John Marshall and the community brought in, and then passing this policy where JCPS is going to be more inclusive and protective and fair and safe for all students, including our transgender students. And I want to say that I'm proud of this board for passing the policy. I think I want to also ask that we recognize that passing the policy doesn't mean everything's going to be great, and that all of a sudden our transgender students and employees and family members are going to have an easy time of it. So I want to make a request that the LGBTQ committee continue to meet and be high functioning and report to us. And now that we have passed this policy, I think we have a responsibility to make sure that training is available. You know, we talked about the learning curve that many of us have been on with this issue, that training is available for those who are affected, and that we are doing everything we can to resource our schools and our administrators so that this policy can be successful.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Porter, and then Mr. Hadaway.
Quickly, I would like to support the comments from Board Member Wilner and ask that Dr. Harkins bring to the board the procedures and that will be in place, because what we have voted on tonight, I would like to know how we will operate tomorrow morning starting at 7 and 7:30. And we have voted on a policy, but not the procedure. And I, as a board member, would like to know what that looks like. Also, quickly would like to congratulate the Lincoln Foundation, who hosted an evening of jazz this weekend. And it was kind of important to me to see one of the students. They always have their high school students that talk to you and say, I'm attending this school and I'm a senior. And when I first came on the board, I met a young man that competed in the oratorical contest for the Louisville Urban League, and he won. And at that time, I think he was a middle school student, and he now currently is a senior. And I was proud to see him, and he will be graduating from Central High School this year. So congratulations to the Lincoln Foundation on their fundraiser, but more importantly, congratulations to them on the work that they have done with these young people.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hadaway?
Yeah, I have a request. I would like to know two things. The pattern of our first-year teachers in the past few years, what their length of stay has been, and how transient have they been. Will I see that first-year teachers go to one school and then put in for a transfer the next school? So I'm interested in our new teachers and what kind of movements they have. And then on the numbers that we received through the courier about the numbers and the attendance, I would love to see that in a 3 to 5 year comparison as well. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Ms. Horn?
I have one more.
Okay, Brady, Duncan, Jones.
It has been 8 months now that I have had the honor of serving my district, and today was, I think, one of the best board meetings that I have been to, and I want to express my thankfulness of the ability to be here and serve the community in this way, to affect the lives of children. And I thank you for Dr. Harkins and all of our directors and our leaders. It's inspiring. The board, you're inspiring to me with your aspirations, and I do appreciate the grounding of Ms. Porter to look toward, and Dr. Wilner, what you're saying is let's see it now happen and be implemented. So my hopes are that we can take these lofty and wonderful policies that we're creating and get it right in the implementation. But just again, thanks again for allowing me to serve my district and this community.
Thank you. Appreciate those comments. Mr. Brady.
Just want to convey my personal thanks and gratitude to all of our principals, especially the principals that are within my district, on a great first day of school. I had the opportunity to be able to visit 4 schools before 12 noon. And I just want to say thank you to those principals at Farmer, Kennedy, J-Town High School, as well as Ramsey Middle School, and Kennedy and J-Town, both being in a way, new principals again. So just want to congratulate them, but also want to congratulate our Chief Operations Officer, Mike Razor, as well as our Transportation Director, Rick Capel, and their team, because it is a team effort, and their fantastic first day of school performance. The weather was, I think, very much cooperated with us, and we got everyone at home in record time. So I just want to congratulate them, and they did a just really good, fantastic job on that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Duncan?
One more request. Dr. Harkins, you probably know this. We received $10,000 from the commissioner when, is that right? When we approved 18 as a dropout age, or raised the dropout age. What was that used for? Do you remember what that was used for? I was thinking, I don't think we've ever heard that.
And actually, team members or staff members attended a conference. Was part of the way that the money was used. And of course, the alternative school redesign is intended to support students as they stay with us until they're 18.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I just have a couple of comments. I'm going to follow up a little bit longer on, I think, Ms. Horn's point about what a good meeting this has been. Started really with the 4 o'clock session. And again, I'd like to share with the public, without going through it in excruciating detail, that the board reported out today on the work of several of its work groups. We've broken ourselves into smaller groups and explored the question of what else does JCPS have to do in order to attain our shared goal. I think it's the shared goal of everyone in the room, of becoming the best urban district in America and having all of our kids finish school ready for the future. And I think Ms. Horn's comment about the importance of execution really is where we're going, because the board dug through a lot of stuff, and our goal was to give both a mandate but also permission to Dr. Harkins and the leadership of the district to address some issues that we really have to improve in if we're going to get where we want to go. Some of them relate to the work that is done in the schools. You know, one is broadening the definition of student success beyond success on a standardized test, and requiring the district to define measures that go after the competence, the resilience, the persistency, the other things that are important in building a child up into an adult. These are very hard issues. Another is a commitment to invest in the capacity, in building the capacity of our professionals, of our teachers, our principals, and of the leadership that helps them, so that they can teach 21st century skills to kids who have the sum of all knowledge in their pocket when they come in the door, and a host of challenges that are not familiar to the board members very well, or to their parents, because it's a new day. So some of the other ones are much more corporate. I mean, they're about customer service and about dealing with the fact that for tenacious, educated, conflict, resilient, English-speaking adults, finding your way to a good JCPS school is a A-OK proposition. But for a lot of other people, it is a really hard go, and they don't really find their way to the best within our system. So we've laid down some challenges, and there's a lot of hard work ahead. But I want to compliment my colleagues on the board, and I want to thank the community members, the leadership of the district, and the personnel from the schools and from central office who helped along that way. Jonathan Lowe, I think we have to call you out for big thanks for keeping us organized and marching. We still have quite a long way to go in that, but today was a good day for us. A couple of other things. First of all, in our Friday memo, Dr. Hargens, there was a report on the Myers students, and I'd just like to ask you to let us know how that will become published. I don't understand how how those documents, sorry? And Frost students also, yeah, Myers and Frost cohorts. I think we've asked those to be tracked so we know what the effect, and this is partly for those kids, those special kids who we need to know where they went, but also the competence to make change and to follow through on did the change work, and to evaluate whether it did honestly, and then to figure out what we can learn. That's a skill that we need to inculcate even more. So what are we going to do to get that? You can follow up later.
Okay.
And then last thing, after we have one speaker on a non-agenda item, we're going to go into executive session, and I will just give a brief explanation. The executive session will be about formative evaluation of the superintendent. In non-school speak, formative means preliminary. When Ms. Duncan and I were at the Kentucky School Board Association meeting, we went to a big session for all the Kentucky school boards about how the evaluation system is supposed to work, and one of the suggested best practices was you don't have to just have one meeting and go in and close the door and have one big high stakes conversation. It's okay to get together and say how's it going on an interim basis, because we laid a bunch of pretty big tasks on our superintendent's head. So probably every couple of months we're going to be doing this as part of the formative assessment going forward. So that's what we'll do. That's the end of my report. Are there additions to the planning calendar? Hearing none, do we have a vote, or do we have a motion to receive the planning calendar? Mr. Hadaway moves, Ms. Brady seconds, all in favor. It passes unanimously. We now have one speaker on a non-agenda item. That is Mr. Tom Moffitt. Mr. Moffitt, would you come up? And Mr. Moffitt has been here before. He knows that he has 3 minutes, and we'll hear a bell after 2.5, and 2 bells at the end of 3. Welcome.
Dr. Hargens and board members, I'm speaking in support of specific suggestions presented by Chris Harmon of FOR previously, related to Vision 2020. They call for including measurable goals for annual reduction of the persistent achievement gaps for 4 groups of students. You're well aware that these 4 overlapping groups include more than half of JCPS students. 60 years ago, the nation began a historic struggle to overcome the racial gap produced by centuries of exclusion from education. 40 years ago, when I was already in Louisville, Jefferson County overcame major mass opposition to busing, and today continues to lead the nation in effective school desegregation. Still, however, the achievement gap for African American students remains essentially unchanged. 40 years. For which all of us in Metro Louisville, not just you, must take responsibility. We must set a goal for positive change. I know you're aware of that need, and you're trying to find the best way to state it. I know also that the Kentucky Alliance Against Racism and Political Repression, as well as a number of other community groups, are committed to adding this to our vision for 2020. Please make sure that your process in the next 2 months encourages maximum input from us and other concerned students, parents, and citizens. Finally, quickly, it takes resources to get this done. Budget decisions to turn goals into reality. Evidently, the JCPS vision and budget distributions for the last 5 years must be changed. The inequity of opportunity for GAP students in 3 out of 4 categories increased last year, according to the best I can see. Perhaps, maybe stayed the same for 1 or 2. Make sure you state a clear goal, then begin immediately to review the budgets for this year and next to identify the most urgent changes, things that already worked in some of our schools. Put them in the budget for more schools. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Moffett. Okay, that concludes our agenda for the evening, with the exception of a search for, is there a motion that the Board of Ed recess and reconvene in executive session for the purpose of a discussion regarding the formative evaluation of the superintendent pursuant to KRS 61.810(1) of the Open Meetings Act and KRS 156.557. Mr. Brady moves. Is there a second? Dr. Wilner seconds. All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. We will go into executive session. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight and for all the people who contributed to a very, very productive evening.
We go down the road and strategic plan.